Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
So we have a few questions from our Ustream listeners.
Yes.
The first one is, what is your concept of forgiveness?
Forgiveness is a centering in gratitude and appreciation for who you are and all that you have experienced, and knowing that you are as powerful as you need to be to manifest whatever you need without having to hurt yourself or anyone else in the process. And it is gratitude and appreciation for that realization and letting go of things that do not serve you or allow you to serve others.
So this whole idea with forgiveness, like I think sometimes people are angry at other people.
Yes.
And then they have to find a place where they forgive the other person.
But they have to forgive themselves, because mostly what they're angry at is themselves.
And the reason that we get angry at ourselves, which then ends up being projected onto someone else.
Yes, which doesn't excuse that they may have actually done something negative. That's not what we're saying.
Okay.
But what we're saying is anyone that reacts negatively in that way has an issue that that person obviously triggered within them. And therefore, they are angry within themselves that that has come up and that that person has been able to actually push that button, that the button even exists. So forgiveness involves the idea of acknowledgement and awareness that that negative belief is within yourself and letting that go, and then also having the compassion and empathy to recognize that this person may have done you a service by bringing that to your attention within yourself so that you no longer have to have that anger at yourself for containing something you thought you shouldn't contain but did.
Also, it seems like it comes down to discernment. Like I've personally experienced, and I'm sure others have too, the idea that you get angry at yourself for not discerning that another person will choose a negative behavior
Whatever the
towards
reason
you.
is that's imposed upon the structure, it's still the same structure.
So
You're angry at yourself.
Right. So that idea of being angry at the self for not discerning correctly, why does that seem so threatening to us?
Well, because again, you are taught other beliefs about how you are supposed to appear successful, how you are supposed to appear smart, how you're not supposed to allow yourself to get taken advantage of, how you're supposed to this and supposed to that and supposed to this and supposed to that. And therefore, eventually, you realize that all these different supposed tos have happened, and now you're very angry with yourself for allowing all these things that weren't supposed to happen. Because you have this idea that they're not supposed to happen, when in fact, obviously, they needed to happen to point out that you needed to let go of those beliefs. So they were supposed to happen in order for you to actually progress and grow and mature.
Can it also be something where it's a survival issue, the idea that if you discern danger correctly, then you survive? So if your discernment isn't working correctly in your environment, can we often perceive that as being life-threatening almost?
Yes, not that it necessarily is, but because of the lack of clarity of what the belief system is, it will often key into your survival mechanism and be blown out of proportion to make you react as if you have to react that way to survive. Yes.
So that makes a lot of sense, that one of the reasons that people take it so hard when they're tricked by another person or they feel that they've made a poor choice, didn't see the red flags, whatever.
Yes.
That it harkens back to our orientation of ourself in the world and in the universe.
Yes.
And the idea that you can feel disoriented if things turn out to be quite a bit different than you think they are.
Although that's a little different. But again, remember that when you go back into that reaction, it's going to key into all sorts of negative belief issues like I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. And by having this experience and the inability to discern what would have prevented that experience from happening, it reinforces the whole issue that it's tapping into. I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. This is something that I can't survive because it's annihilating my sense of self-worth. It's reinforcing the idea that I'm no good, I don't belong. so on and so forth. It's tapping into all of that and magnifying all of that. So it becomes this jumble of negative belief system reinforcement that can escalate to the point where it feels like a survival issue.
And so the way out of that, now that we've brought that to light,
is to take responsibility for your particular reaction regardless of what another person might have chosen to do, so that you can stop the cascade effect and realize that you don't necessarily need to react. You have something that you can examine within you and find out whether it's true or not, or whether it actually leads you to an understanding or a recognition of a belief that you need to let go of, and therefore you can explore it in a positive way.
I'm just wondering if there's sort of a quick self-reminder at that point, because I've seen this happen to so many people that it can really throw you off. When
I
that
create
happens.
my reality. No one else does. I create my experience. No one else does.
So is it sort of the circuit breaker?
Yes.
It actually comes back to the circuit breaker.
Yes. Because if you remind yourself that you're creating your experience, then you can be the only one that's responsible for changing it.
Right.
So it puts you right back into self-empowerment.
So I think the circuit is, I feel such and such. I feel such and such because
I believe such and such about myself.
And I believe that because I think that it serves me.
Because I believe that it serves me.
And so,
and that's
why
where
would
it goes
I
back
believe that?
To the motivational mechanism.
Why would I believe
you
that serves me?
You will always go towards you believe will serve you. Will always move away from what you believe will not. So if you're going toward things that don't serve you, that means your motivational mechanism is tied to beliefs that allow it to operate in reverse of the way it's designed to operate in a positive way.
I've actually found with the circuit breaker that you don't even have to know the answer to the question of why would I believe that this serves me. All you have to do is acknowledge that you're doing it for what you believe to be a positive reason. So in a sense, if another person tricked you, you allowed it to happen because you believed that it would serve you, or that the choice that you were making.
Yes. And again, it doesn't condone their action. But the idea is you are learning to use it in a positive way that serves you. By taking that stance, by taking that state of being, instead of assuming that you've actually been duped.
Right, so right there you can feel the energetic shift between feeling victimized to realizing that you chose an experience so that you could become more aware, because this is a place where you're learning things.
Because if you have the idea that you feel victimized, what's actually happening is that person has put you in touch with the fact that you have victim-level belief systems about yourself. Again, it doesn't condone what they did, because they obviously have victim-level belief systems too in order to have done what they did. But nevertheless, they put you in touch with your own, and that gives you the opportunity to remain in a positive state and deal with it in a way that will allow you to accelerate through the process of divesting yourself of those belief systems. And then that turns you into a being that can be the state of being that might actually help the other person realize they can do the same.
So when it all comes back to forgiveness now, it actually has a lot more depth, the idea of forgiving yourself when you recognize that at some level you were choosing this for a positive reason.
Yes.
And also recognizing that the other person was, in a sense, a person in your play, in your drama, and that they were making themselves available for that, regardless of whether they had negative intention or not.
Remember that when everyone is self-empowered, there will be no one to answer the call to reinforce belief in victimhood. You understand?
Yes.
Victims in that sense will simply be isolated and get tired of playing the victim game and suddenly re-empower themselves, because that's the only example they're given. So the last victim will automatically empower themselves when no one else is willing to play the victim game.
And that's part of what we're learning here, is not to play the victim game.
Exactly.
because we
Because you are not victims.
Oh, because we're so powerful. I mean,
Yes.
it's our consciousness that's generating the whole experience to begin with.
So remember that when you feel powerless, you're using your power to create the feeling that you're powerless, which means you're in power. It's all about how you're using your power, not that you actually can be powerless. Anything else?
No, I think, that's a great exploration. I really appreciate that. So if you're hungry, well, you're probably not hungry.
No. But you may all enjoy your nutrition break, and we will resume this transmission after your lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa.